I never thought I'd see my sister Dolores again, not after what she did to me 15 years ago. But there she was, standing in the produce section of Morton's Market on a Tuesday afternoon, looking like she hadn't aged a day. Her hair was still pressed and curled, her nails still painted that bright red she always favored, and she was wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. The bag of collard greens slipped right out of my hands when I spotted her. 15 years of built-up anger came rushing back like a flood, but before I could even process what I was seeing, she turned around. Our eyes met across the aisle, and I watched her face go from casual shopping mode to pure shock in about 2 seconds flat. "Francine?" she called out, like she couldn't believe it was really me. I stood there frozen, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might jump clean out of my chest. Behind her, I could see a man pushing a shopping cart. Tall, still handsome despite the gray at his temples. My ex-husband, Clarence. The man who'd promised to love me till death do us part, then ran off with my own sister when things got tough. Well, I finally managed to say, finding my voice. If it isn't Dolores and Clarence, y'all sure got some nerve showing your faces around here. Dolores had the audacity to smile, like we were old friends meeting up after a pleasant separation. "Francine, honey, you look good." Her eyes swept over my simple church dress and comfortable shoes, and I could tell she was being polite. "We just moved back to town. Clarence got a job at the new insurance company downtown." "That's nice," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Real nice. Tell me, Dolores, how's your son doing? You remember him, right? Little Damon, the one you left with me when you ran off?" The smile faltered on her face. "Now, Francine, you know that was a complicated situation." "Complicated?" My voice rose loud enough that other shoppers started turning to look. "You told me that boy was dying. You said he had some rare disease and wouldn't live to see his 6th birthday. You convinced me to take him in because you couldn't bear to watch him suffer." Clarence stepped forward then, putting his hand on Dolores's shoulder like he was protecting her from me. "Francine, let's not do this here. We can talk somewhere private." "Oh, we're gonna talk all right," I said, stepping closer. "But first, I got something to show y'all." I pulled out my phone. Yes, this old lady knows how to use technology, thank you very much. And scrolled to my photos. I found the one I was looking for and held it up so they could see. This here is Damon at his high school graduation last month, valedictorian of his class, full scholarship to Morehouse College. And this, I swiped to the next photo, is him at the science fair where he won first place for his project on renewable energy. Dolores's face went white as a sheet. Clarence just stood there with his mouth hanging open like a fish. "You see," I continued, my voice getting stronger with every word, "turns out that dying boy you abandoned wasn't sick at all. Just neglected, malnourished, scared, but definitely not dying. Before we continue, please tell us where you're watching from so we know how far our stories reach. And subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Now, let me take you back to where this whole mess started, because Lord knows this story needs to be told from the beginning. It was March of 2008, and I was living what I thought was a pretty good life. Clarence and I had been married for 8 years. We had our little house on Maple Street with the front porch I loved to sit on in the evenings. I was working as a secretary at Johnson & Associates law firm, and Clarence was doing construction work. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable, and we were happy. Or at least, I thought we were happy. Dolores lived about 20 minutes away with her 5-year-old son, Damon. She'd never been married to his daddy, some guy named Tony who disappeared when she told him she was pregnant. But she always acted like she had everything under control, like she didn't need anybody's help raising that baby. Damon was the sweetest little boy you ever did see. Big brown eyes, chubby cheeks, and a smile that could light up a room. But whenever I'd see him at family gatherings, something didn't seem right. He was always too thin, too quiet, too clingy with whoever would pay him attention. His clothes never quite fit right, and he always acted like he was hungry. I'd ask Dolores about it, but she'd just wave me off. "That boy's fine, Francine. You worry too much. Not everybody's cut out to be a mama like you think you are." That comment always stung because Clarence and I had been trying to have children for years with no luck. The doctors couldn't find anything wrong with either of us, just said sometimes these things take time. But at 35, I was starting to wonder if my time was running out. Everything changed on a rainy Thursday evening in March. I was in the kitchen making my famous cornbread, the recipe our mama taught me before she passed, when there was a frantic knocking at my front door. I opened it to find Dolores standing there in the pouring rain, mascara running down her face, holding little Damon's hand. The child looked like he'd been crying too, and he was shivering in a thin jacket that was soaked through. "Francine," Dolores said, pushing past me into the house, "I need to talk to you. It's about Damon." I got them both towels and made some hot chocolate while Damon sat quietly on my couch, looking around the house like he'd never seen anything so nice. That should have been my first clue, but I was too focused on my sister's tears. "What's wrong, Dee?" I asked, using the nickname I'd called her since we were kids. She took a shaky breath and looked over at Damon, who was warming his hands around the mug of hot chocolate. "He's sick, Francine. Real sick." My heart dropped. "What kind of sick?" "The doctors say he's got this rare condition, something with his blood. They're saying—" She paused and wiped her eyes. "They're saying he might not make it to his 6th birthday." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. "Oh my God, Dolores. What can we do? What kind of treatment does he need?" "That's just it," she said, her voice breaking. "There's nothing they can do. It's too advanced. All we can do is make him comfortable and love him while we can." I looked over at little Damon, who was now lying down on my couch with his eyes getting heavy. He looked so small, so fragile. The thought of losing him made my chest tight with grief. "I can't do it, Francine," Dolores continued. "I can't watch my baby die. It's killing me. Every time I look at him, I just think about how much time we don't have left." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I need you to take him. Just for a while, until I can get my head straight. You always wanted children, and you're so much better with him than I am. He loves you, Francine. You see how he lights up when you're around." It was true. Damon and I had always had a special bond. Whenever there were family gatherings, he'd seek me out, curl up in my lap while the adults talked, help me in the kitchen when I was cooking. I'd always thought it was because I paid attention to him, but now I wondered if it was because he wasn't getting that attention at home. "I don't know, Dolores. This is a big decision. What does Clarence think?" That's when she dropped the second bomb. "Actually, Clarence already knows. We've been talking about it. He thinks it's a good idea, too." Something about the way she said it made my stomach turn, but I couldn't put my finger on why. Later, I'd realize it was because she said, "We've been talking," like they'd been having conversations behind my back. But in that moment, I was too focused on the dying child in my living room to think clearly. "How long?" I asked. "Just a few months. Maybe 6. The doctors said that's probably all the time he has left anyway." I looked at Damon again. He'd fallen asleep on my couch, still holding the empty mug. He looked peaceful for the first time since I'd known him. "Okay," I said. "Okay. He can stay here." Dolores hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "Thank you, Francine. Thank you so much. You're saving my life." But as I held my sister and looked at that sleeping little boy, I had no idea that I was the one who was about to be destroyed. The next few weeks were like a crash course in motherhood. Damon moved into our spare bedroom, and I threw myself into taking care of him. I took him to doctor's appointments, bought him new clothes that actually fit, made sure he had 3 meals a day plus snacks. The strange thing was, the sicker he was supposed to be, the healthier he seemed to get. His cheeks filled out. He started laughing more. He had energy to play and run around the backyard. When I mentioned this to Dolores during one of her increasingly rare visits, she just said that sometimes kids have good days. Clarence, on the other hand, seemed to be getting more and more distant. He'd come home from work later and later. He'd spend more time on his phone, having hushed conversations that stopped whenever I walked into the room. When I'd try to talk to him about Damon's care or ask him to help with bedtime routines, he'd get irritated. "That's your nephew, Francine," he'd say. "You're the one who wanted to take him in." It hurt, but I figured he was just struggling with the idea of watching a child die. Some people handle grief differently, right? The truth came out on a Sunday evening in May, 2 months after Damon had come to live with us. I'd taken him to Mount Olive Baptist Church with me that morning, my church home since I was a teenager, and Pastor Williams had prayed over him during service. Damon had been so proud, standing up there in his little suit, shaking hands with the deacons afterward. We'd spent the afternoon at the park, and Damon had run around for hours playing with other kids, laughing and acting like any normal 5-year-old. When we got home, I was feeling so grateful for what seemed like a good day in the midst of a terrible situation. That's when I walked into my bedroom and found Clarence packing a suitcase. "What are you doing?" I asked. He didn't even look up. "I'm leaving, Francine." The words hit me like a slap. "Leaving? What do you mean, leaving? Where are you going?" "I'm going with Dolores. We're moving to Atlanta. I got a job down there." I stood there trying to process what he was saying. "You're going with Dolores? My sister Dolores?" Finally, he looked at me. And I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Guilt, maybe. Or just cold indifference. "We've been seeing each other for about 6 months now, Francine. We didn't plan for it to happen, but it did. And we're in love." The room started spinning. 6 months? 6 months? That means you were cheating on me before Damon even came here. Look, I'm sorry it happened this way, but you and I both know our marriage has been over for a while. We never talk anymore. We don't have fun together. And with your whole baby obsession. Baby obsession? I wanted children with my husband. That's not an obsession, that's normal. Whatever you want to call it. The point is, Dolores and I are happy together. Really happy. And we're starting fresh in Atlanta. That's when the full picture started coming together in my mind like puzzle pieces clicking into place. "What about Damon?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Clarence shrugged. "What about him?" "He's dying, Clarence. Your girlfriend's son is dying, and y'all are just gonna run off to Atlanta and leave him here?" "He'll be fine with you. You love playing house with him anyway." "Playing house? He's dying." Clarence zipped up his suitcase and headed for the door. "Francine, you're a good woman. You'll figure it out." And just like that, he was gone. 20 minutes later, a car pulled up outside, and I watched through my front window as my husband loaded his suitcase into the trunk of my sister's Honda Civic. They drove away without even looking back at the house. I sat down on my bed and cried until I thought I might throw up. 8 years of marriage, gone. My sister, who I'd trusted with everything, gone. And in the next room, a little boy who thought I was just his temporary caretaker while his mama got her life together. How was I supposed to tell him that his mama had abandoned him? How was I supposed to explain that the people who were supposed to love him most had just walked away like he meant nothing? That night, after I tucked Damon into bed and read him 3 stories like I always did, I called Dr. Peterson, the pediatrician who'd been treating him. Something about this whole situation wasn't adding up, and I needed answers. "Dr. Peterson, this is Francine Williams. I'm Damon's aunt, the one who's been bringing him to his appointments." "Of course, Mrs. Williams. How can I help you?" "I need to know exactly what's wrong with Damon. His mama told me he had some kind of blood disorder and that he was dying. But he seems to be getting healthier every day." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Mrs. Williams, I think there might be some confusion. Damon doesn't have a blood disorder. When he first came to see me a few months ago, he was malnourished and showing signs of neglect. but there's nothing terminally wrong with him. He's actually a very healthy little boy." The phone slipped right out of my hand. The phone hit the floor with a crack that probably broke the screen, but I barely noticed. I was too busy trying to wrap my mind around what Dr. Peterson had just told me. Damon wasn't dying. He'd never been dying. My sister had lied to me about everything. I picked up the phone with shaking hands. "Dr. Peterson, are you still there?" "Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Williams, are you all right?" "You're telling me that Damon is perfectly healthy?" "As far as I can tell, yes. When his mother first brought him in, he was underweight and had some vitamin deficiencies consistent with poor nutrition, but nothing that couldn't be corrected with proper care. And from what I've seen in his recent visits with you, he's thriving." I slumped against the wall, my legs suddenly feeling like jelly. His mother told me he had a rare blood disorder, that he might not live to see his 6th birthday. Another long pause. "Mrs. Williams, I never diagnosed anything like that. I'm not sure where that information came from." After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen for I don't know how long, just staring at the wall. Everything made sense now. The way Damon had gotten healthier instead of sicker. The way Clarence and Dolores had been acting. The timing of everything. They'd planned this. They'd used that innocent little boy as a way to get me to take him off their hands so they could run off together without any responsibilities. They'd made me think I was doing some noble thing, taking in a dying child, when really I was just cleaning up their mess. The rage that filled me in that moment was unlike anything I'd ever felt. It started in my chest and spread through my whole body like fire. I wanted to get in my car and drive to Atlanta and tell them exactly what I thought of them. I wanted to call every family member we had and expose them for the lying, selfish people they were. But then I heard footsteps on the stairs, and little Damon appeared in the kitchen doorway in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes. "Aunt Francine? I heard a noise. Are you okay?" Looking at him standing there, all sleepy and trusting, my anger transformed into something else, something protective and fierce and determined. "I'm fine, baby," I said, opening my arms. He ran to me and climbed into my lap, like he'd been doing it his whole life. "I'm just fine." As I held him, breathing in the smell of the baby shampoo I'd been using on his hair, I made a decision that would change both our lives forever. I wasn't going to tell him the truth about his mama and my ex-husband. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What good would it do except hurt him? Instead, I was going to love this little boy like he was my own. I was going to give him the life he deserved, the life they'd thrown away. And someday when Dolores and Clarence came crawling back, because people like that always come back when they need something, I'd be ready for them. The next morning, I called in sick to work and took Damon to see a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. I went to see Reverend Thompson's daughter Candace, who'd just started her own practice after working for the district attorney's office for 5 years. She was young, but she was sharp, and more importantly, she understood family. "Francine," Candace said after I explained the situation, "what you're describing sounds like child abandonment. Do you have any documentation of Dolores giving you custody?" "No, she just brought him over and asked me to watch him for a while. Said she'd be back when she got her head together." "And that was 2 months ago?" "Yes." "Ma'am?" Candace leaned back in her chair and tapped her pen against her desk. "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to file for emergency custody, and then we're going to petition for permanent guardianship. If Dolores has truly abandoned Damon, the court will likely grant it, especially if we can document his improved condition under your care." "What if she comes back and tries to take him?" "She'd have to prove she's fit to parent him, and abandoning a child for months doesn't look good to a judge. Plus, if what you're telling me about his condition when he came to you is true, we might be looking at neglect charges." That afternoon, we filed the paperwork. Within a week, I had temporary custody. Within 3 months, it was permanent. Dolores never responded to any of the court notices. She'd made her choice, and apparently, it didn't include her son. But raising Damon wasn't just about legal papers. It was about building a life together, and Lord knows that wasn't always easy. The first year was the hardest. Damon would wake up crying in the middle of the night asking for his mama. He'd ask when she was coming back, when he could go home. I'd hold him and tell him he was home, that I wasn't going anywhere, but it took time for him to believe it. There were practical challenges, too. I had to learn how to do a little boy's hair, how to shop for clothes that would fit his growing body, how to navigate parent-teacher conferences and birthday party invitations. I had to figure out how to be both mama and daddy to a child who'd already been through more trauma than any kid should face. But we had help. The folks at Mount Olive Baptist Church rallied around us like we were their own family. Sister Betty Johnson, who'd raised 6 kids of her own, taught me how to cornrow Damon's hair and gave me hand-me-down clothes from her grandsons. Deacon Williams helped me fix up the spare bedroom and even built Damon a desk for homework time. Pastor Reynolds made sure Damon felt welcome in Sunday school and always asked about his grades. "That boy's got something special in him," Pastor Reynolds told me one Sunday after service. "You mark my words, Francine. God's got big plans for that child." He was right. Once Damon started feeling secure, his personality just bloomed. He was curious about everything, always asking questions, always wanting to know how things worked. He'd follow me around the kitchen when I was cooking, asking about measurements and temperatures. He'd sit with me when I was paying bills, wanting to understand numbers and budgets. By first grade, his teacher, Mrs. Henderson, was calling me in for conferences because he was reading at a 4th grade level. By 3rd grade, they wanted to skip him ahead a year, but I said no. He'd already missed out on enough of his childhood. The money was tight in those early years. My secretary's salary wasn't much, and raising a child is expensive. But we made it work. I took on extra typing jobs in the evenings after Damon went to bed. We shopped at thrift stores and clipped coupons. We ate a lot of beans and rice and cornbread, but we always had enough. And you know what? We were happy. Really, truly happy, in a way I'd never been with Clarence. Damon and I developed our own little routines and traditions. Saturday mornings were for cleaning the house together while playing old Motown records. Sunday afternoons after church were for cooking big family dinners, even though it was just the 2 of us. Wednesday evenings were homework time at the kitchen table, and I'd help him with math while he helped me plan the grocery list. When Damon turned 8, he asked me if he could call me Mama instead of Aunt Francine. "You don't have to," I told him. "I know you remember your first mama." "I remember her," he said. "But you're the one who takes care of me. You're the one who reads me stories and makes sure I eat my vegetables and helps me with my homework. That's what mamas do, right?" I cried so hard that day I thought I might flood the kitchen. As the years went on, Damon just kept exceeding everyone's expectations. He joined the school's academic bowl team in middle school and led them to the state championship. He started a science club that built robots and competed in engineering competitions. He volunteered at the church's after-school program, tutoring younger kids in math and reading. But it wasn't just academics. The boy had a heart bigger than Texas. When old Mr. Crawford down the street got sick and couldn't maintain his yard, Damon started mowing his grass every week without being asked. When the church was raising money for a new roof, he organized a car wash with his friends and raised over $800. When Hurricane Katrina hit, he insisted we send his birthday money to help the victims. "Mama," he told me when he was 12, "you always say that God puts us where we need to be." Maybe I needed to be with you so I could become the person I'm supposed to be. That child had wisdom beyond his years. High school brought new challenges and new triumphs. Damon was accepted into the early admission program at the local university, meaning he could take college classes while finishing high school. He was editor of the school newspaper, captain of the academic bowl team, and president of the National Honor Society. But the proudest moment came during his junior year. The school was having its annual awards ceremony, and Damon had been selected to give the student speaker address. I sat in that auditorium, wearing my best dress and trying not to cry, as my boy walked up to that podium with more confidence than I'd ever had in my whole life. "Good evening, everyone," he began, his voice clear and strong. I want to talk tonight about the power of second chances. He went on to tell the crowd about how sometimes life doesn't go according to plan, but that doesn't mean it's over. He talked about the importance of having people in your corner who believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. He talked about how success isn't just about grades or awards, but about character and kindness and lifting up others along the way. He never mentioned his biological parents or the circumstances that brought him to me. But when he looked out into that audience and said, "I want to thank my mama, Francine Williams, for showing me what unconditional love looks like," I lost it completely. The whole auditorium erupted in applause, and I could see people wiping their eyes all around me. Sister Betty reached over and squeezed my hand. "That's your boy," she whispered. "That's your boy." After the ceremony, we went to celebrate Good Times, the Black-owned restaurant where the church folks always went for special occasions. The owner, Mr. Ezra, insisted on bringing us a free slice of his famous sweet potato pie. "That boy of yours is going places," he told me. "You done good, Francine. Real good." As we sat there sharing that pie, Damon looked at me with those same big brown eyes he'd had as a 5-year-old, except now they belonged to a young man who stood 6 feet tall and had scholarship offers from 5 different colleges. "Mama, I've been thinking," he said. "I know I don't know much about my biological father, but I was wondering, do you think I should try to find out more about my biological mother? Maybe reach out to her?" My heart clenched. In all these years, Damon had rarely asked about Dolores. I'd told him that sometimes parents make difficult decisions, and that his mama had thought I could take better care of him, which wasn't exactly a lie. But I'd never told him the whole truth about the abandonment, the lies, the betrayal. "What makes you ask that, baby?" I'm about to graduate and go to college, and I keep thinking about family. I mean, you're my family, and you always will be. But I wonder if she ever thinks about me, if she ever wonders how I turned out. I took a deep breath. "Damon, if that's something you want to do, I'll support you. But I want you to be prepared for the possibility that she might not respond the way you hope." "I know. I just think I need to try, for closure." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if I should tell him everything. But how do you explain to a 17-year-old that his mother used him as a pawn in her affair? How do you tell him that the people who should have loved him most saw him as nothing more than an inconvenience? I decided to wait. If he really wanted to reach out to Dolores, I'd help him. And maybe, just maybe, she'd surprise us all and have grown into a better person. But I had a feeling that when that day came, I'd be the one protecting him from heartbreak all over again. Graduation day arrived faster than I expected. There was my boy, valedictorian of Roosevelt High School's class of 2023, giving a speech that had half the audience in tears and the other half on their feet cheering. He'd gotten that full scholarship to Morehouse College, his dream school, and he was planning to study engineering with a minor in education. "I want to design systems that make people's lives better," he'd told me, "and I want to teach, because everybody deserves to have someone believe in them the way you believed in me." After the ceremony, we were standing outside the school taking pictures when my phone buzzed with a text message. I almost ignored it, but something made me look. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, Francine, this is Dolores. I heard through the family grapevine that Damon graduated today. Clarence and I are thinking about coming to visit soon. We'd love to see how he turned out." My blood ran cold. After 15 years of silence, now she wanted to show up? Right when Damon was about to start his new life? I looked at my son, who was laughing with his friends and posing for pictures in his cap and gown, completely unaware that the people who'd abandoned him were about to try to waltz back into his life. Not if I had anything to say about it. But as I was deleting the message, another text came through. "P.S. We're staying at the Hampton Inn downtown. We'll be at Morton's Market tomorrow around 3 p.m. if you want to meet up and talk. Time we cleared the air." I stared at that message for a long time. 15 years I'd been waiting for this moment, planning what I'd say if I ever saw them again. 15 years of watching Damon wonder about his biological parents, while I raised him into the incredible young man he'd become. Tomorrow, they'd find out exactly what they'd thrown away. And I was going to make sure they knew it. But what I didn't expect was what happened when I showed Damon those text messages that night after our graduation celebration dinner. He read them twice, then looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before. "Mama," he said quietly, "there's something I need to tell you. I've been in contact with her for the past 6 months." The words hit me like a freight train. "You've been what?" Damon set down the text messages and took my hands in his. "Mama, please don't be upset. I found her on social media about 6 months ago. I needed to know." My mind was racing. "How much does she know? About your life, about school, about—" "Everything," he said quietly. "I told her about graduating valedictorian, about Morehouse, about you. I sent her pictures from my science fair wins, my academic bowl competitions. I wanted her to see who I'd become." I felt like I was going to be sick. "And what did she say?" Damon's expression darkened. "That's the thing, Mama. The more we talked, the more I realized something wasn't right about the story I'd been told. She kept talking about how she had to make difficult choices and how she knew you'd give me a better life. But she never mentioned me being sick, never mentioned any medical problems. So you figured it out." I did some digging, found my old medical records, talked to Dr. Peterson. He looked at me with eyes full of pain and understanding. "Mama, I know what really happened. I know she lied about me dying. I know she abandoned me to run off with your husband." The tears started flowing before I could stop them. "Oh, baby. I never wanted you to find out like that. I was trying to protect you." "I know you were, and I love you for it. But, Mama, I need you to know something." He squeezed my hands tighter. "Finding out the truth didn't make me love you any less. It made me love you more. Because you took a broken, neglected little boy and turned him into someone who believes in himself. You didn't have to do that. You chose to." We held each other and cried for what felt like hours. When we finally pulled apart, Damon had that determined look in his eyes that I'd seen when he was studying for finals or working on a particularly challenging science project. "Mama, I want to meet them tomorrow, but I want you there with me, because there are some things they need to hear." And that's how we ended up at Morton's Market the next afternoon. Me clutching my purse like a weapon and Damon standing tall beside me in his best button-down shirt and dress pants. He looked every inch the accomplished young man he'd become. We spotted them in the produce section, just like Dolores had said. She was examining apples while Clarence pushed their cart, and for a moment, I was transported back 15 years to when this had been my life, my routine, my husband. But then I looked at Damon, and I remembered what really mattered. "Showtime," he whispered, and we approached them together. That's when I had the confrontation I told you about at the beginning, the one where I showed them Damon's graduation pictures and watched their faces turn white. But that was just the opening act. When I finished talking, Dolores tried to recover. "Well, of course we're proud of him. We always knew he was special. That's why we made sure he was with someone who could give him opportunities." Damon stepped forward then, and I saw Dolores's eyes widen as she took in his full height, his confident posture, his presence. "Hello, Dolores. Clarence." His voice was calm, respectful, but cold as ice. "It's interesting that you put it that way, because from our conversations over the past few months, I got the impression that you thought you were saving me from a terrible situation. Quote, your Aunt Francine was always so desperate for children, we thought we were doing her a favor." Clarence shifted uncomfortably. "Now, son." "I'm not your son," Damon said firmly. "I haven't been your son since you walked out of that house 15 years ago without so much as a goodbye." "But let me tell you who I am," He pulled out his phone and started scrolling through pictures. I'm the kid who won the state science fair 3 years running. I'm the young man who got a full scholarship to Morehouse College. You know, the same school that produced Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Spike Lee. I'm the person who spent his 16th birthday volunteering at the homeless shelter instead of having a party. With each accomplishment he listed, I watched Dolores's face crumble a little more. But most importantly, Damon continued, I'm the son of Francine Williams, the woman who took a scared, neglected 5-year-old and loved him unconditionally. The woman who worked double shifts to pay for my school supplies and never once complained. The woman who sat up with me all night when I had nightmares. Who cheered louder than anyone at my academic competitions. Who taught me that family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up. By now, other shoppers were starting to notice the commotion. Sister Betty from church had just walked up with her cart and was watching with wide eyes. Damon, Dolores said, her voice shaking. You have to understand. I was young. I was scared. You were 28 years old, Damon shot back. The same age I'll be when I finish my master's degree. That's not young. That's old enough to take responsibility for your choices. We came back because we wanted to be part of your life, Clarence said. We heard about your success, and we're proud. You're proud? I couldn't keep quiet any longer. You're proud of a child you abandoned? You're proud of accomplishments you had nothing to do with? You want to know what pride looks like? I pulled out my phone and showed them a video from Damon's graduation speech. This is pride. This is my son telling a whole auditorium full of people about the power of unconditional love. This is him thanking me for being his mother. Where were you when he had the flu and missed a week of school? Where were you when he didn't make the basketball team and cried for 3 hours? Where were you for 15 years of birthdays and Christmases and first days of school? We sent money, Dolores said weakly. You sent what? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Honey, I never received a dime from either of you, not 1 penny. Dolores looked at Clarence, who had the grace to look ashamed. I thought you were sending the money orders. I was going to, but then business got slow and... Oh my God, Dolores whispered. Oh my God, we never sent anything. The truth of their selfishness was hitting her in real time, and I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Let me tell you what you missed, Damon said, his voice getting stronger. You missed raising a human being. You missed the privilege of watching someone grow from a scared little boy into a man who's going to change the world. You missed bedtime stories and science projects and piano recitals. You missed the chance to be loved by someone who would have forgiven you anything if you just stayed. We can make it up to you, Clarence said desperately. We can be a family now. We've got money saved up. We can help with college expenses. I don't need your money, Damon said. I've got a full scholarship, remember? And I've got something better than money. I've got a mother who sacrificed everything to give me the best possible life. He turned to me then, and the love in his eyes made my heart feel like it might burst. Mama, thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for showing me what real love looks like. Thank you for being everything they never were. That's when Sister Betty started clapping. Then Mrs. Rodriguez from the next aisle joined in. Within minutes, half the store was applauding my son, and I was crying harder than I'd ever cried in my life. Dolores and Clarence stood there looking like they wanted to disappear into the floor. Finally, Dolores spoke up one more time. Damon, please. I know I made mistakes, but I'm your mother. That has to count for something. Damon looked at her for a long moment, and I held my breath. You're the woman who gave birth to me, he said finally. But Francine Williams is my mother. There's a difference. He took my arm and started walking toward the exit. Come on, Mama. Let's go home. As we walked away, I heard Clarence call out, Damon, wait. Don't you want to know why we really left? Damon stopped and turned around one last time. I already know why you left. You left because you were selfish. You left because you thought you could have a better life without me in it. Well, congratulations. You got exactly what you wanted." We walked out of that store with our heads held high, leaving them standing there with their empty cart and their empty excuses. In the parking lot, Damon wrapped me in the biggest hug I'd ever received. "I'm sorry you had to go through that, Mama." "I'm not," I said. "I'm glad they saw what they lost. I'm glad they know what kind of man you became without them." "You know what the funny thing is?" Damon said as we got in the car. "All these years I thought something was wrong with me. I thought maybe I wasn't worth staying for. But seeing them today, seeing how they still tried to justify what they did, I realized the problem was never me. The problem was them." "That's right, baby. And their loss is my gain. No, Mama, their loss is their loss. But my gain is having you as my mother." 3 months later, Damon left for Morehouse College. The night before he left, we had dinner at Celebrate Good Times with half the congregation from Mount Olive Baptist Church. Pastor Reynolds said a blessing over Damon that had everyone in tears, and Sister Betty presented him with a quilt she'd made featuring patches from his old school uniforms. "This quilt tells the story of your journey," she told him. "Take it with you so you never forget where you came from and who loves you." That evening, as we sat on our front porch watching the sunset, Damon asked me something that surprised me. "Mama, do you ever regret it? Taking me in, I mean. Your whole life changed because of me." I looked at this incredible young man I'd had the privilege of raising, this boy who'd become my son in every way that mattered, and I smiled. "Damon, you didn't change my life. You saved it. Before you came along, I was just existing. You gave me purpose. You gave me joy. You taught me what it means to be a mother. But you gave up so much." "I didn't give up anything. I gained everything that matters." As I watched him pack up his car the next morning, loading it with clothes and books and dreams, I thought about that scared little 5-year-old who'd shown up at my door 15 years ago. I thought about all the nights I'd worried I wasn't doing enough, all the times I'd questioned my decisions, all the sacrifices that hadn't felt like sacrifices at all. And I thought about Dolores and Clarence, wherever they were, wondering if they ever thought about what they'd thrown away. Their loss. My blessing. Damon graduated from Morehouse College summa cum laude 4 years later. He got his master's degree in engineering from Georgia Tech and his teaching certification from Emory. Today, he's working as an engineer for a company that designs sustainable energy systems. And he volunteers as a math tutor at the Boys and Girls Club every Saturday morning. He's engaged to a wonderful young woman named Zara, who he met in graduate school. She's a doctor, and together they're planning to start a foundation that provides STEM education to underserved communities. And me? I'm about to become a grandmother. They asked me to move to Atlanta to be closer to them when the baby comes, and I said yes. After all these years of wondering if I'd ever have a family, I'm about to have the biggest, most beautiful family I could have imagined. Sometimes people ask me if I ever heard from Dolores and Clarence again after that day at Morton's Market. The truth is, Dolores tried to reach out a few more times over the years. She sent a card when Damon graduated from college. She sent a friend request on social media when he got engaged. But Damon never responded, and eventually she stopped trying. I don't hate them anymore. I can't afford to waste energy on hatred when I've got so much love in my life. But I also don't feel sorry for them. They made their choices, and they have to live with the consequences. As for me and my son, we're living proof that family isn't about who gave birth to you or who you share DNA with. Family is about who shows up, who stays, who loves you when you're unlovable and believes in you when you don't believe in yourself. Family is about choosing each other every single day and never giving up. And that's exactly what we did. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.